Welcome to Political Trade Secrets, an inside look at campaigns and politics, where we pull back the curtain, look under the hood, and investigate all aspects of politics and how elections are won. Now, here's your host, Dustin Olson.
And welcome to Political Trade Secrets. I'm your host, Dustin Olson. It's great to have everyone showing up from around the internet this morning on Ash Wednesday. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your Wednesday morning with us. And we're going to have a great conversation today. We're going to be hitting on some of the headlines of today, as well as we're going to be talking about if you're thinking about running for office sometime in the next, year, 2 years. You can do a lot of work now to prepare to be able to do the fundraising that's going to be necessary in order to win your victory and have your vision become reality. And I'm also very grateful to have Sean Bartley, my co-host, joining here as well today. Sean, how are you doing?
Good morning. Glad to be here. Looking forward to a great conversation. This is a good time to be preparing for these things. I know you see sprinkling out a couple of people a day announcing across the country for races in 2022, and one of the things we suggest is making sure you're completely prepared for it before you get out there. And so that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, and it's going to be a great conversation, and hopefully people do prepare now so that it's easier later. It's never easy, but I can guarantee you that if you don't dig your well now before you're thirsty, you're going to have a harder time of it. And that is just what it's going to be like. So if you're joining us from anywhere across the internet, you can go to politicaltradesecrets.com. You can watch us there live every single day. Sean, if you wouldn't mind actually checking to see if we are live there and that everything's working, I'd appreciate it. And then also sign up there to be a Political Trade Secrets insider and to get exclusive stuff from us and to always be able to be in communication. We are organizing people from across this country, empowering political leaders, empowering everyday citizens to be informed citizens, and really all in the effort to reignite American patriotism so we can all stand as Americans together, one nation under God. And that's why we would love for you to join us there. And then also, Sean, if you'd like to let people know about our sponsors, I'll let people know about Olson Strategies. If you are thinking about running for office, and today's conversation maybe has you start thinking, I think I would like to run for office, or at least like to talk to some folks who can help me think through what the process would be like, what it might take to do it. Please reach out to us. You can email Dustin@olsonstrategies.com. That's OLSON. Or you can email Sean at Olson Strategies. That's SEAN at olsonstrategies.com. And we would be happy to talk you through that. Also, if you have an organization that is taking on some issue, or maybe you want to be a political action committee, whatever it is that you're out to do, we also support those kind of organizations as well. And with that, Sean.
So look, we're proud to be sponsored by Grassfire. What do? Canvassing, petitioning, live calling. It's on the doorstep, in front of the grocery store, or over the phone. It's the one-on-one, human-to-human interactions that Grassfire does better than anybody in the business. You have one shot to make a first impression. Have it count with Grassfire. Grassfire also fuels 10centtexting.com. What do? It is all of the communication to a mobile device. So image, GIF, short video, right there in the body of the text. We had people tell us about one that got sent out yesterday that they really appreciated, and getting feedback. Look, it is the way to connect with people right where they are. You can also have conversations. So 10centtexting.com, reach out. They literally wrote the book on texting. So go visit them today. And we're live on Political Trade Secrets.
Perfect. Awesome. I just wanted to double check. I say that you never know if they're going to turn off the internet somehow. And we're, speaking of, I'm on my phone right now, sharing to all the different groups. I just shared to the Trump supporters private group, and So if you are out there, we are looking for folks to be part of the Share Force. So join us, join ShareForce, help reignite American patriotism. You can do that by going to politicaltradesecrets.com, but you also can reach out to me and Sean. And what you can really do just right now, wherever you're at watching, is you can share the program to your feed. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're at, you can do that. And we really do appreciate people sharing that. It does make a difference for sure. And wherever you're at, you can post any kind of questions, comments, and we'll bring those into the conversation today. I see that people are already. We have a couple of good mornings, and we have a couple of questions already on this conversation. So thank you for those. We will bring those into the conversation. We're going to hit a couple of the headlines first. Sean, today is Ash Wednesday, and a lot of people across this country are they're expressing their faith today.
Yeah, and a lot of reports it's going to be different this year. That a lot of places are not, if you've seen the ashes on the forehead, which is traditional for those that go to Ash Wednesday service here in America. I understand a lot of places are going to do the sprinkling of the ashes like it's done in Europe, as opposed to the ashes on the forehead with COVID. So that is another thing that's a little different this year or over the last year than it has been in the past.
Yeah, it would have been about this time last year that things started kind of becoming a little bit questionable. People started thinking about it. It was about this time. We're almost a year into really people being aware of the challenges.
Yeah. Well, it's I think we're 11 months into 15 days to stop the spread, as I've heard out there. So this is another one that's a little different this year as far as that goes. But it's a great reminder about so a lot of folks that celebrate that take part of Ash Wednesday. And give up things for Lent. That's something that people might be looking towards. One of the things that we've suggested is kind of giving up that your view of, or at least our view of what's going on out there is how it's happening.
Yeah.
And so that's something I'm going to continue to give up during this Lenten season, and as best
tell us
I can.
How that's going to look.
Yeah.
So give us an example.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just particularly when we've talked about being able to decipher the news, read the news, and say, oh well, I know that this is true, or I know that this is false. Like, no kidding. Take a step back and say, okay, well, using the maybe principle and really applying it. So I, like anyone, can fall into the trap of, I already know if this is real or not. And so, so stepping back from that is something I think is going to be valuable to try on during this time. So I encourage us to take a look at what you might be able to try on during the Lenten season, whether you celebrate or not. I mean, 40 days is a good opportunity to take a look at most anything and really get a different appreciation for it. So
that's so cool. Well, it's kind of a commitment to the beginner's mind that we talk about, that giving up knowing and giving up certainty. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'll have to think about what I might want to give up, if anything at all. And anybody in the comments, if you want to share anything that you might be wanting to give up during this time for whatever you're up to in your life.
Well, and it's perfectly understandable for folks out there, if they didn't even realize Ash Wednesday was happening. I mean, there's a lot to, normally you have stories of Mardi Gras and whatnot, and those were, that didn't happen. I understand that Bourbon Street was basically cordoned off, that you couldn't even go there otherwise, let alone many people joining and decorating houses instead of floats and parades and whatnot. So it was just a different feel, and you didn't even realize it was happening. So some of the traditions that you might be used to, you didn't even know you were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it is amazing how time is kind of without having these typical things that happen throughout the year. It does, you kind of lose track of time sometimes because you don't have Mardi Gras and maybe you aren't doing the things that you normally do. I know that a lot of people, without really having a distinction between their weekend and the weekdays, that they're struggling with that. But one thing, if you're giving up something you cannot give up if you're a candidate, is fundraising. I think I've heard a couple of candidates over the years suggest that that's what they're giving up for Lent, and unless you're in a legislature where it's illegal for you to fundraise during that time, you can't give that up. But we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah.
One of the things I think is interesting that President Trump has popped up a little bit, and the news has gotten a little bit more interesting. So I just wanted to call out. Did you read his statement?
Oh, I thought it was great. Yeah, but you read it for our audience. But
so I'll just read my favorite line by far is talking about Mitch McConnell. And Mitch is a dour, sullen, and unsmiling political hack. And if Republican senators are going to stay with him, they will not win again. It's just, it's been a while since we've had someone who can really hit the nail on the head so well. The unsmiling is by far probably the most damning statement in there, because I don't think I've ever seen Mitch McConnell smile. And if he did, it would just be really uncomfortable to see that.
Yeah. Well, and it also gets to it. We talked about this, like the low energy with Jeb
Mhm.
and other things. So it'll be interesting to see how Mitch reacts to this, because, like, what a lot of politicians do is like, well, I'm going to prove that I'm not unsmiling. I'm going to smile,
Mhm.
and
He's not going to do that.
No, I agree. I think if that were the case, though, it would look forced and fake and and uncomfortable. I think Mitch gets who he is,
Mhm.
um, by and large. So I think um, I think there's less of a chance of that. But I think it I think it really gets to the heart of Mitch McConnell really is a very good minority leader,
Yeah.
and that is what he is. That's what he was really built for, and so
I mean,
it's
this is my thoughts on Mitch McConnell, is that I do not really care for the guy that much, and he's if he is the highest ranking, sort of, I guess. Him and Kevin McCarthy, they're the top Republicans in the country. Now, between the two of those, I would definitely go with Kevin McCarthy any day of the week. But if we don't have inspiring political leaders, people who are breathing some life into the movement, then yeah, I think the president is absolutely right that that's not going to be a winning formula. Now, if it means maneuvering in the Senate to try to stop things from happening, I think he's a pretty effective operator, and he's going to do that. And I think a lot of the stuff that's happened, I just don't like his behavior in the last few weeks. And I understand he's very emotionally involved in all of it, but he himself has also created problems in doing so and being so driven by his emotions. And that's, I think that has lost him any kind of authority within the party, unfortunately for him. So he's not going to be the one leading people out, whether he's in that role or not. He's not going
yeah,
to be the one leading out. Now, I hope we can use him as an operator to stop the bad things, because he's that level of understanding of the Senate. Clearly, he's valuable in that regard. But I just thought it was interesting. Just there's a lot more popular support for the former president than there is for the current president, which is pretty remarkable to watch across the country. People actually moving themselves to take action in support of him, which
yeah,
is not something you would have ever expected. So I do think, no matter whether people like it or not, that Donald Trump is the leader of the party, and he is the inspirational leader of the party. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's good because he's the one who's shaking things loose for this party.
Well, and I think some current and former clients of ours have been saying, look, the you know the way forward for the Republican Party is not uh, trying to eliminate the Trump years.
Hmm.
It's really
To
um,
build on it.
yeah, exactly. I mean, look, the foundation of the party um, was really created in the last 4 years, and there's been a shift both
Hmm.
ways.
It's
Uh,
interesting though that they're the media and the Democrats, they're all interested in what's going to happen with the Republican Party, and I'm not too worried about it myself. But the this morning, the Washington Post had a live interview with Evan McMullen to find out his views of what's going to happen with the Republican Party, which I thought was the most absurd thing ever. He he ran against President Trump in 2016. As people know, he's independent and he's a real piece of work. But that's who the Washington Post thinks to talk to about the future of the Republican Party. It's pretty rich.
yeah, you might remember him. He ran for president of Utah.
Yeah, exactly. That's I think is that the only place he was on the ballot? I think he was on a couple places,
He was
but
on other places.
and we know stupid people in Utah who voted for him. They thought that was a legitimate thing to do. Anyway, it's pretty remarkable. But anyway, that's who the Washington Post can, I guess, actually get to talk to him about the future of the Republican Party is a malcontent independent who left the party crying and screaming, and I don't think he really has much of a pulse on what's going on in the Republican Party,
No.
nor really an entry point to joining us again at any point.
Well, and look, it makes sense that people want to talk about you know whatever might be going on in the Republican Party because it is a way to talk about the most interesting figure in politics, which
Hmm.
is private citizen Donald Trump,
Hmm.
and the um, so that's interesting. And it also keeps attention away from what's going on in the Democrat Party, which is, the infighting there is real. And if if you believe the new coalition, which supposedly has suburbanites in it, what are they doing to actually bring these people into their party? I mean,
Yeah.
um,
Well, this is part of the problem. This is what we're going to talk about with fundraising is when you take advantage of people, when you don't really cultivate that relationship, you will lose them
yeah,
eventually. And I think that's what's going to happen with them. Now, on what you just pointed out, keeping the attention away from the current administration, I think, is part of what the current administration wants to do. I think we'd like to talk about the Joe Biden town hall at some point. In particular, I think we should see if Colonel Kane can come on and join us to talk about China. In particular, I think it's not going to really be news because the news isn't going to cover it. But Joe Biden definitely um, put a very pro-China message out there, and I wouldn't even say pro-China. I'd call it almost Manchurian candidate type of statements. So I'd like to get his thoughts on it, Colonel Kane's thoughts on what does this mean for our country with what seems to be a kind of a placating position towards China right now.
yeah. Well, what he's doing with Hong Kong, and according to Joe Biden,
Mhm.
what Xi Jinping is doing with Hong Kong and the Uyghurs and the One China policy. Well, there's just cultural differences.
Yeah.
I mean, Neville
The
Chamberlain
extermination
could
of
have
a
said
whole
that
group of
in the late
people is just
30s.
a cultural difference.
Yeah, I mean, Neville Chamberlain could have said that in the late 30s.
Yeah,
This is cultural
I think that would have made Neville Chamberlain blush, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it was couldn't believe it, and kudos to Anderson Cooper for not asking a follow up. I mean, well done.
Yes,
Great
that's how
reporter
you do it.
yesterday.
That's how you fake the news. Well, let's go to unless you have anything else that you want to talk about today. I want to just kick off this fundraising conversation. So we're talking about, maybe you might call it pre-fundraising or pre-campaign fundraising preparation. Maybe you're thinking about running for office next year, or maybe a cycle from now. What can you be doing now? And this is something that maybe it's a pet peeve of ours. I don't know. We oftentimes have conversations with somebody after they've already filed to run for office, and that's when they first talk to us. That's okay. But then we have a good conversation with them, but we find out that they really have never thought about fundraising before. They've really not done much in the way of preparation, and it's actually kind of shocking. There are a lot of people who run for office out there that really aren't that well known in the district or in the community. They haven't really networked or connected with a lot of people, and there's a couple of things that has an impact on somebody. One, you're not as in touch with the community as you could be, but then you don't have the resources necessarily to draw upon. So I've talked about this before, but when you think about strategy as a journey, so this is kind of a metaphor of strategy as a journey, as a way to think about it. Imagine you're here at point A, and you have this journey you're going to take. You're going to go through this, over these plains and through these mountains, and through a forest, and you're going to end up somewhere way over there at point B. Like, exactly where you're going. So you have to know where you're going. That's the first thing when you think about strategies. You got to know where you are and where you're going. And then you have to, there's the landscape that you're going to be navigating to get there. And then there's going to be the weather, the environment, everything that's going to have an impact on you between point A and point B. And then you're going to have your map. Hopefully you have a map. That's something you're going to need to bring along the way, so you know where you're going to go. You're going to have your route, and you're going to want to pay attention to the forecast, know what's going to happen, and it's going to affect your journey. But the next thing that's so important, and so many people don't think about when they're about to set out on this journey, is the resources that you're going to have to get you through this journey, or that you're going to be able to have bring to bear as you're on the journey. And if you haven't thought about that resources component, you're going to end up starving and running out of gas somewhere along that journey. Like, there's no way that you're going to be able to fuel your journey. And so that's what we're talking about now, is that before you've ever set out on this journey, you need to start thinking about what resources do you have, and what resources can you bring to bear. So we've talked about the 3 T's before. Time, that's a resource you have. Well, have you thought about, will you be able to run full time? Will you have the time, or will you have to work and do it? Of course, you have that. You also have people power. You have volunteers and the like. So you have those as a resource. Will you have people who can come in and be part of your grassroots? But the big thing is, do you have the money right now? Maybe you have your own money, and maybe you have also, do you have a network of people who are going to give to you? So that's the kind of, there's a setup, is that if you haven't thought about that resources component, in particular the money, and you haven't developed that network, it's going to be difficult. So Sean, as we're kind of setting up this conversation, what thoughts do you want people to be thinking about?
Well, I want you to think about we say that in campaigns, at least 75% of your time needs to be spent fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
So, so not just the allocution of time, like, okay, are you also working? Or are you also doing other things? What else is going to eat into that time? But, the time that's allotted for campaigning, we say 75% of that needs to be spent fundraising. And that's why in this conversation, we say, okay, well, preparing to fundraise only makes sense, because if it's something you're going to be spending 75% of your time on, it's the thing to be getting prepared for first and foremost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really kind of the mindset that comes into the conversation as I kind of look at it today. And then, and part of it is that fundraising is not just something that fuels the campaign from a resources standpoint, but it is a great opportunity to really hone your message, to refine your vision, do a lot of those things that are just so critical.
Yeah.
So
So that goes to the mindset. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. As part of right now is what you need to be doing is like, shifting your mindset. If it's something you're dreading already, that could be a telling sign as to, if this is the thing to do for you at this moment. I'm going to read up a couple of the comments,
yeah,
so we can bring this into it, and we may answer them immediately, or we may answer them as we go along. Alexandria says, "Good morning. Fundraising early is the best way to go. I have found success using my online social media networks. WinRed and Anodot are both two platforms for fundraising I have used." Well, thank you for the comment. Those are great. Great comments. Also, I got your what you're giving up for the for Lint, and then let's see. Did I get Pat's also? A candidate has to answer the question of what do you think it will take to win, then what can you actually raise, and those are really good questions as well.
and I
And,
want to make sure we get
and
Robert.
Robert, yeah, and then Robert said, "How do you figure out a fundraising goal for different races?" And that's a really that actually kind of both Pat and Robert are on the same trail, I think there.
Yep.
And then Women Reigniting American Patriotism. I have multiple phases of fundraising plans, so and that's true throughout the campaign. It's going to be a little bit different through the different phases. We said 75% of your time. That's on average. The last few days of the campaign, you probably won't be spending that much time on fundraising in the last like 3 days, but it could be that in the first month of the campaign you're spending 95% of your time fundraising. So it's just on average. So we're going to bring that into this conversation. So if you are running for a different level office, it's going to be a different amount of money. The number one thing that we think has the biggest impact on the budget of a campaign is going to be the number of votes that you need to win. That has a direct correlation to the amount of money that you need for your budget, oftentimes.
Absolutely. And so thinking about it, like, what does it take to win is also a product of, these races are all going to look different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you've got candidates in the race who either have a history of not really doing a lot as when it comes to fundraising and whatnot. I remember when I worked at the Ohio House of Representatives, we had a candidate who was like, well, hey, I'm county commissioner in the county that is almost all of this state representative seat. And he said, I've never raised more than $7,000 for any race, and I'm not going to now. And we said, okay, well then you're not going to be state representative. You can, and but you're the name they know or whatever. But that's just not what's going to happen. It's a completely different race.
It really it's frustrating to me. I don't know why, and maybe. So the thing I don't understand is why people go into these races sometimes with the idea of trying to think about how little you could possibly do to win the race. And I get the idea of Archimedes' lever or actually Occam's razor, do the smallest amount of what is effective. But I don't think that's what the attitude you want to bring to a campaign. I think you want to think about how can you bring the most just the fastest. And that's I think that was Patton who said that. But that's the attitude I think you want to be coming to is you don't know exactly how much it's going to actually cost. Honestly, we do projections, we try to figure it out. But if you end up in a race where all of a sudden, this has happened a few times where we have an opponent who they didn't look like they were all that, they look like they're successful, but they didn't look like they had a lot of money. And it may not be that they have so much money, but they have a really big commitment. We've been in races where the opponent has just put in a ton of money at the end and it was not expected. All of a sudden, then your race costs more money.
Yeah.
That's just how it's going to go. So you can't plan for that situation. And so in which case you need to be planning for what's the most you can bring to bear into this race if you are serious about winning this race.
Yeah, and so we really look at that in all three of the three T's.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the most time that you and key people can bring to this race? What is the most talent? So, who or what do you have at your disposal that can really make the difference there? And then when we talk about treasure, it is like, no kidding. What is it that you think, what is it that you think is the most you can raise? But also, like, okay, I get that this is kind of what I see as possible, but what might be keeping me from expanding that?
Yeah.
So, because that's the other thing. I think we talk to a lot of candidates who go, "Well, I could never raise X,"
Yeah.
and we say, "Well, have you even gone about some of the steps that we're going to talk about right now?"
Yeah. Well, the first thing that we always tell people, and this is usually when you get a little bit closer to the race, is we always ask them to put together a list of at least 600 names. Uh, and and it's not just the names that we want. We want to have names plus a phone number and email. That's what we're looking forward for when we have that conversation. And at first, if somebody has some trepidation about that, that's okay. This is why preparing now, if you're running a year from now or 2 years from now, is really important. You can start thinking about who are people who are just at least would be somewhat possible donors to your campaign. You don't even have to know them that well. And part of what is really helpful in clarifying this is the conversation we had yesterday about vision, and we had when we did the Martin Luther King Jr. Day uh, conversation about vision and how to go about clarifying your vision. Because as you clarify your vision, whatever it is that you see as possible out of your service, many years from now, what's going to be accomplished because you served. Think about all the people who would want to be a part of something like that, or could even just maybe even possibly want to be a part of that. And you start looking through your life, you'll be surprised at how many names you can get down onto a spreadsheet that could possibly be somewhat interested in whatever it is that you have as part of your vision, and put them down. And the key here is to not have any constraining rules as you do this. You want to be as open as possible, because the reality is, circumstances will bring in, plenty of constraints at some point. Don't constrain yourself. You want to be as open in this process as possible, and just think about who are all the people and just keep putting that down. Sean, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, the thing I'll say about this is, whenever you're thinking about doing it, or you might even say, "Hey, this is 5, 10 years down the road," and even if you're thinking that way, I say put together the list, start the list, because there are going to be people that you think of now because this is where you are in life now.
Mhm.
Where 2 years from now, you're going to have new people in your life to put on this list.
Mhm.
But you don't want to forget about the folks that, you might get to a spot, let's say you're running 5 years from now, and maybe you haven't spoken to that person since you put their name on a spreadsheet on, February 17th, 2021. So when you did that, like, you had them down there for a reason. And so this is an opportunity to say, okay, these are folks that at some point I want to talk about running for office, and have them be a part of it by donating. And so
Mhm.
get their names down. I'd say start that wherever you are on this. If you
Yep.
think, maybe you think there's a 5% chance you might ever run for anything, I say start the list, because
Yeah.
if nothing else, you've got a list of people that you'd like to talk to.
And the
Um,
key is to make it simple. You want a simple system for this. Bill Clinton is famous for, before he ran for office, he would take business cards and he threw them, he had bunches of shoe boxes full of business cards of people that he had met along the way. And then when he ran for office, he was able to create a list off of all those shoe boxes full of business cards. And that's something that you can do. And, one of the things, this is all about relationships. So if you have a way to continually have cultivated that relationship, you want to be doing that throughout that time period when you have time to do it.
yeah, yep. And so it is really, it's just an easy tool to create that you can have there. And then the other thing we would suggest is, because you might already have a Christmas card list or something like that, update the contact information.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're keeping up to date on that. It's a good practice, not just for campaigns and politics, but for life. You want to be able to reach out to people that you like to be in contact with.
Yeah, and if you happen to think you're going to be running in the fall and you're not going to have a chance to, well, you can start updating your Christmas card list now. You can also send a 4th of July card. That's something people do. And by the way, having 2 cards go out a year is not a terrible idea to continue to cultivate that relationship and make sure people are that you're connected with them. It is a really excellent way to connect with them. So you have that list. You also will have school directories. You'll have every different directory that you've ever been a part of. You want to start pulling all that stuff in and start pulling it into your list. And you have your wedding list. You have your you name it. Any, like, if you're in any kind of club, you're just going to bring all that stuff. And one thing that we do with candidates, and particular people who have lived in lots of different places, you kind of almost have to hover over your life and think about the whole timeline of your life, and almost go back to the different places you are and imagine yourself in those places. And who are the people that you were talking to, that you had, you spent time with, the different churches you're members of, all those different things that you've been doing through the years. You're going to have to kind of just go and put yourself back in them and start just bringing the list. Now, 600 names for some people is going to seem like a lot at first, and then you're going to find out as you start this process that it's not a lot. And we just have that. It's kind of an arbitrary number, but what the idea is that it gets you to, if you call 600 people, you will probably, if these are people who like you have some little bit of connection with, you could get to 150 donors in several weeks or so. That's basically what can happen out of 600. Now, that's not going to be enough for a whole race. So this is just really as a threshold to even be thinking about running, is that you can pull together that kind of a list. You'll find it's easier once you start putting it all together. But if you can get to thousands of names, that's really, it's not 600 and done. It's thousands of names that you want to be pulling into this list, regardless of what level of office you want to run for. You're going to try to get to connect with as many people as possible. Try to have the biggest, big little black book possible.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So this is not an ending point.
Mm-hmm.
I think so often, I think this is probably the biggest disconnect we get in campaigns or talking to people about running, is what we have as a starting point is what a lot of people go, okay, well, I got there, so then that needs to be the ending point.
Yeah, 600 is the starting point.
And
Point.
and I think that's critical. It also gets kind of back to the question, like, how much do I need to raise to win this? And and a lot of times the real question that's being asked is, what is the least I can raise to win this? What is the least I can spend to do this? And we've had stories before where we say a number and the candidate goes, well, I don't think it takes that much. And okay, the difference here though is that really through our breadth of experiences, this is what we believe it takes to wage a successful campaign, and a lot of factors can go into it. Maybe it will take less, but the truth is, if it takes the bigger number, and you haven't done it, you're not getting elected. I mean, that's just So,
and the truth is, if it takes the lesser number, it's because luck was on your side.
yeah,
For instance, this has happened before where an opponent, the person who could bring a lot of money into the race, ended up dropping out because they fell ill. They got cancer or something like that. Is that really what you want to bank your victory on? Is that some kind of factor like that is what changed the dynamics of the race so that it was a much cheaper race? So you're in the process of planning for it. You want to make sure that you don't ever end up out of fuel and starving on the road to where you're going, and that's the intention here. So when you do this process, you're going to start to get a sense of where you're actually at, and you're going to start to see where there's some strengths, and you're also going to see where there might be some things missing. And I think we should spend a little bit of time talking about what are ways that you can, if you are out there right now and you're not going to be running immediately, what are some things you can do now? And as you think about your vision, clarifying your vision continually is really important. If this is, I think, really as an American citizen, if you think about your vision for this country, that's a powerful thing to do anyway. But if you just look at your vision, what is it that you would like to be possible because you serve? Think about organizations that you can be a part of right now that could be part of fulfilling your vision, and see if there's ways for you to go and raise money. If you're not going to be running for office immediately and you're going to have a year or 2 years, maybe more, go and help raise money for another organization, because it's going to be a lot easier to raise money for your campaign at some point if you've gone out there and you actually practice raising money. Also, your networking, figure out who the big donor kind of players are in your district and your community, and see if there's ways that you can do things to partner with them that can support them and what they're out to do. And actually you can make introductions, begin now getting to know those folks who are the big players, the people who will help fund your race at some point. There's some people that you don't know yet that you want to get to know. Sean, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it really is. This is the opportunity for cultivation. It really is, and that's what you get to do here. So it's establishing and reestablishing relationships. It's having those conversations, which can before you're running, it can be about running for office, or it can just really be about getting to know them. I mean, it doesn't need to be solely on that. And when you really get to know these folks more, you can really be speaking to speaking to what they care about, that really connects with what you care about. We talked about the strategy sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
It's in these conversations where you're going to really get to know what it is that these folks care about. So thinking about it, not just the voters care about, but what the donors care about, and really getting what will make a difference for them and what they're looking for in leadership. And so
and that's what you really need to be interested in, is what would make a difference. What's missing in the community that you could possibly provide that would make a difference. I see a couple of comments here. Thank you, Robert, for the suggestion. By the way, you get a lot of information in Pennsylvania by getting the voter list from the state for $20. And there are a lot of resources like that. And you can start maybe figuring out there's ways to start developing a relationship with folks on that. I have a sense maybe what you're suggesting is that they might even include if the person's a donor. I don't know if that's the case in Pennsylvania, but you can get a lot of good information. And here's the thing: if you have a cause, maybe it's even starting an organization of your own that's out to fight a certain cause, and you can bring people around some vision, something that you're actually taking action on. You're gonna be in the trenches, working with people, alongside people, and you're going to develop really strong relationships, because that's what really this is about. It's about those relationships. It's getting to know what matters to those donors, that in how it matches up with your vision, like you were talking about, Sean. That's really the rubber meets the road. And one of the biggest failings I think I see with candidates when they are in the middle of the fundraising process, in the middle of the campaign, they can almost become transactional with their conversations with the donors, and they think that there's something wrong with the donors and what have you. But the truth is, they don't really seem all that interested in what's going on in the donor's life. They don't seem, or the potential donor's life, they don't seem that interested in that person in the conversation. Then if they do happen to get a donation, they don't seem all that interested in that donor after that. And really cultivating that relationship, which is part of what I think you can do now, is develop the relationship such that when you're in the middle of the campaign, you're not having to develop it then.
But
if you are in the campaign, you want to still cultivate it. So that's really, really important.
Yeah, and a lot of we've had Paige Marriott, and we've had a lot of conversations about fundraising on here, and it's really the relational approach to fundraising that not only works the best, but also is most fulfilling for you as a candidate and the donor.
Hmm.
So they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. You're offering that to them, and it's something that can be co-created.
Yeah.
So, um, no time like now to actually see what it is that they might actually want created out there.
Yeah.
Um,
If
yeah,
there's a big donor in your community, if there's some like mover or shaker, figure out how you can get to know them today. Like figure out who do you know that knows that person and start adding some real movers and shakers to your list. Take that 600 people and make it 1,000, but add in a bunch of very influential people. Because the truth is, this is what we talk about with these conversations. Instead of having fundraising be a drudgery and be something that's like a something that's in the way of you getting elected, that's how a lot of people have it, is to shift that context and your frame for what fundraising is. Fundraising is your opportunity to share your vision with people of influence. And every single time what you see as possible is handed over and given to somebody with influence, and they are like, yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I want to make that happen too. Your vision becomes that much more real when influential people have bought into it. So that's really really important. So go meet those people, go develop the relationship, see how you can work together today to better your community, and you will have a partner and a friend going forward for when you actually decide to run for office.
yeah. I think that that is really a great way to look at this, and because we also talk about, and one thing that's going to be valuable here is really taking a look at what your vision is, like why it is that you would be running for office, and really, cultivate that as well.
Hmm.
Um, really dig into like this is what it's about, because that's another opportunity here. It's something that can come out of these conversations where you're just getting to know the people on your list, the people who might be beyond that. Because one of the things you can even have the conversation with, even if you aren't running for office yet, is to say, okay, well, who else would be interested in what I'm talking about here and what we're talking about? And they might say, you know what, I talk to this guy about this every week. He's gung ho about it, and it's going to be somebody that you might not know yourself. So that is another thing that's really possible in digging in now, um, when there's not a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to to be doing it, and and there aren't campaign bills that need to be paid, and whatever else might be there. So
Yeah, things that people add significance with.
yep.
One of the things that we have found is really great training. It's really amazing. Can you remember the name of the company? It's the Southeastern Book
Oh
Company,
yeah,
or I
yeah.
think that's what it's called. So there's this company, book. It was basically encyclopedia sales or Bible sales or something
Mhm.
like that. Company many years ago, and we've actually worked with numerous candidates through the years who worked with this company in high school or in college to, you know, pay for extra spending money or to pay for school or what have you, and they tend to be some of the best fundraisers. They don't take no for an answer. I think they had something they used to tell them that every door that's slammed in your face is you're one door closer to a book sale, something like that. But they like brainwash these kids into being able to handle rejection. Not everybody does it work with, but for the most part, they really are take no prisoners kind of an attitude that they bring to it. And then also Cutco was another place that
Yeah.
people did in high school, and they tend to be a little bit better. But you don't have to have had a job like that. Just giving yourself a way to practice before you actually are in a campaign of having something of value that you're offering someone and giving them the opportunity to take action on. So maybe you want to work with the local cancer foundation and you want to help raise money for that. You're helping people be a part of something greater than any one person and giving them the opportunity to take action on it. And every time you get the opportunity to practice that, the better you will be when you are sharing your vision with people and giving them the opportunity to be a part of that as well. And for instance, I did a leadership program several years ago that gave me an opportunity to do that over and over again with lots of people. You're currently in that program, and you are getting the opportunity to have conversations with people and to share, you know, a vision, a possible
Yeah.
vision, or whatever. So, what are you learning for yourself in doing this?
Yeah. Well, one is I've learned that I don't always want to make phone calls, so I get that.
That, by the way, we do this partly. The reason why we've done this for ourselves is that it really does create some empathy for us with our candidates, because we've actually had to make hundreds of phone calls as well.
Yeah. But what I've really gotten is that when you get into the other person's world, that's how I would describe it, is um, that's really where, well, that's where life happens,
Mhm.
is really being out there with them. And then secondly, it's where actions come forth, and you can really get get what's going on and create something. We might call, and then who knows, we might end up doing business with them instead, or whatever it is. So
You say create something. What do you mean by that?
yeah, like there is, in a conversation where you really get what's going on, you can create what's possible. So what we're really talking about when you're talking about your vision and sharing that with people is that um, you're sharing one possible future with them, and then they get to you get to have a conversation about it. What when I'm talking with folks, it's like, okay, well, what is it that you want to see, and really giving them an opening to be able to talk about that. So you really get to learn different ways that you can um, that people can be open with you, and so being open with them is one of those ways to do it. So um, you know, and that's one of the things that really comes out of doing it more and more, and so that's something that's going to be possible for candidates as well, when they're actually out there making the calls and even connecting with people with the intention of, no kidding, I'm connecting with people.
What I hear and what you're saying is that being present in the
Hmm.
conversation, in the listening. What Alex mentioned, listening earlier. That's a big part of what this is. And when you say being over there, like instead of having your focus like inside of your head, that you're thinking about what you're going to say next, whatever, is actually you locate your focus over with the other person. Like you're so intently paying attention to what they're saying that there's it's almost like it's an alive conversation. The conversation just everything just comes out of it um, organically
Yeah.
because you are really paying attention to them. That is something the better candidates that we work with, they are very present with the people that they're speaking to, as in there's no one else in the world, and it really doesn't take much other than to just locate your focus over there with the other person's voice if you're on the phone, or the other person's um, presence if you're in the same room as them. And so there's a couple of comments here I think we want to get in here. When your vision becomes theirs, money comes in. That's a really powerful idea, and it's almost where when your vision becomes a shared vision, when it becomes our vision, and they add to it. That's when we always say in the conversation that when you're talking about something and you're sharing things back and forth, when the other person starts adding to it, adding to the vision, that's when they have taken some ownership of that vision themselves, and there's an opening to give them the call to action at that point to take action. And there's a comment. Remember that cold calling is really challenging at this point. If you want to call people, warm them up first. Exactly, and that's why being present is so important with people. Really
And
connecting them, getting in their world.
yeah, I just want to say something about that, Robert. So there's two things. One is, there's that is probably one of the main reasons to get started with folks now. Create your list. Actually, because your list are going to be people that you're a little more connected with
Hmm.
than others to begin with. Secondly, is that as you're honing this um, and really getting in on this, that really any conversation, um, regardless of how long you've known the person on the other end, does not need to be a cold call.
Yeah.
And so, but that comes with practice. It comes with actually creating relatedness and some of those other things that we talk about in detail on the Olson strategy side of things. But that is one way to avoid. Our goal is that you would never make a quote unquote cold call, regardless of how long you. Yeah, exactly. You don't have to have ever talked to somebody before for it not to be a cold call. And so, but part of it is like if you've gotten if you've gotten into enough people's worlds and been present and you're present in that conversation, whatever might be there around it's going to disappear pretty quickly for you.
Yeah.
So,
And of course, at the beginning of a campaign, if it's the 600 names, hopefully it's 2,000 at this point, but you've got all these people that you have some connection with. Those are going to be the first calls, but it will be natural, whether you call it cold calling or you call it calling people you've never had the opportunity to get to know yet. You will be at some point later on in the campaign, you'll be talking to more people that you have never had the opportunity to speak with before. So a lot of practice is what's going to take once you get to that point. And the more people you've cultivated relationships with earlier, the more practice you're going to have with doing that. So Robert says, I'm trying to create Facebook groups to build an audience for an office. That's a really good idea too. And it goes to the idea of joining people in a cause, whatever it is, the cause could be, and using tools like that. Also texting. I think we're going to have someone on here in the next couple of weeks. We work with Grassfire and TencentTexting.com. And texting is a possible way to have a community around a certain cause and to be putting information out there. We're going to be doing something like that soon with political trade secrets as well, so that you have basically a text chain. So there's lots of ways to have that kind of that community engagement, and the Facebook groups are really good. The key there though is that you want to be able to have their contact information. One of the challenges of these centralized social media companies is that they own the data, and you may not have a way to stay in communication with folks. And regardless, you don't have a way to call them. And we find that you really have to have that voice-to-voice conversation with people to really have them take action.
yeah, and it's where look, one of the things that people struggle with, and actually the comment just came in, kind of gets to this, is that people want to be heard.
Mhm.
And so one of the best ways to be heard, particularly now, and it's probably because we have so many other ways to communicate, is through a voice to voice conversation, because so often you can send a correspondence in some way and send that emails and whatnot, and communicate, but really hard to deliver that back. And so people having gotten that, so I think they're that is the advantage. And so really being able to grow that list, that's why we talk about, okay, you got people and maybe them, the way you stay in touch with them is Facebook Messenger or whatever. Well, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
For a way to stay in contact. What it doesn't do is really build that broader rapport and of that conversation. It's you can have 100 different things going on while you're messaging someone, and there's nothing wrong with it. But when what we've seen as being present is the thing that makes the difference. So it's in those conversations that happens. So that's
Robert, I got your message that you're working on ways to get email addresses and phone numbers. If we can be helpful, let us know. Text messaging is probably going to be one of the best ways. If you have a text message system set up where you have a phone number and you tell people just to text you, and that basically it creates an opt-in list, and people then, and then you have everybody in your own universe. That is a tool that can be very helpful with that to make it simple, a simple way to do that. Because you want to be able to have conversations with these people. It's going to be it's going to really make a difference. And anyway, I really, there's a lot of really great comments from folks. I want to mention, Pat says Fanatical Prospecting is a good book to get the mindset. And I wanted to read just a real quick thing from this book, The Joy of Fundraising. And this is the biggest thing. It's really about the mindset. And Pat really is honing in on that. If you have it, this is the worst thing ever, like you just do not want to do it, well, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. Now, there's going to be plenty of challenges in your campaign, but if you really can shift it from this is your opportunity to talk to influential people and to share your vision with them such that it becomes that much more real each and every conversation you have with them. Yep, that's a great tool. Robert mentioned community.com is really good. They are not big on campaigns, so just know that at some point you'll want to get your list from them before you actually announce your campaign. So this is the old reality of fundraising versus the joy of fundraising. So I'm just going to read through this real quick. The old reality of fundraising, the myth of scarcity. There is never enough money to go around. The joy of fundraising, the reality of abundance. The resources you need are in abundant supply. The old reality of fundraising. You need to attract new donors each year to stay afloat, and you need to find even more new donors to grow. The joy of fundraising. Take better care of the donors you already have, the relationships you have. They will attract others and become lifelong partners in your work, or we would say your vision. The old reality of fundraising. In order to get people to give, you must entertain them and give them something first. The joy of fundraising. The donors give to causes they truly believe in. That's why the vision is so important.
Yep.
And that you can create it such that you both share it. The old reality of fundraising. Effective fundraisers convey the essence of their organization's work through well-documented and clearly presented facts and statistics. The joy of fundraising. While myth-busting facts are important, effective fundraisers know donors respond best when they are moved by powerful stories of how your work or your vision affects the lives of those you serve. The old reality of fundraising. All donors can be cultivated in the same way. The joy of fundraising. Each donor is a special individual who flourishes when treated with a personal touch. And I think that's a great point.
Oh, absolutely. Those were great to share, and to the book that Pat was talking about, I think that's really talking about. I think, and Pat, just tell me if I'm wrong. I think that book is talking about really building your list and seeing everything as an opportunity to build on that, and it's something we definitely talk about, like you know that there are conversations to be had out there with everyone,
Yeah.
and really from every walk of life, and they can contribute in some way. So you want to, as you're building that team, it's an opportunity to be in touch with them. So do that.
Every single person on this planet can do something to further your vision. We have laws in this country. If someone's a citizen of another country, they can't give to your campaign, but they can be supportive of you. I'm not focusing on that, but the key is that anybody can give $5, no matter what. Every single person has a way to contribute to your vision, and even if it's just helping you network with other people who can give to your vision, that's something that everybody can help do. Is everybody knows somebody who wants whatever it is that you're out to do. I mean, that's
Yep.
just that's the idea of the abundance, that there's somebody who wants to be a part of that. Well, that's I think that's the conversation for today. I really do appreciate all the great feedback from folks as we're going through this conversation, and that people really get what's possible out of creating a vision, sharing it with people, and giving them an opportunity to be a part of it and to prepare for that process now. It's never too early to start, and you're just going to increase your success that much more by beginning to prepare now. And if you'd like to be a part of this conversation at a greater level, if you'd like to get exclusive stuff, exclusive information, go to politicaltradesecrets.com and sign up to be a Political Trade Secrets Insider. It's a way for us to be in communication with you and to further develop that relationship. And with that, Sean, would you like to tell people how else they can be involved?
Absolutely. Look, are you thinking about running for office? You watched today and you said, you know what, I'm ready to take the next steps and see what that looks like. Reach out to us. It's www.olsonstrategies.com. That's OLSON strategies.com. And then you can email me at Sean, SEAN, at olsonstrategies.com, or Dustin at olsonstrategies.com, and get that conversation started today. We're also proud to be sponsored by Grassfire. What do? It's all of the one-on-one, human-to-human interactions that take place in a campaign. It's in front of the doorstep, on the doorstep, in front of the grocery store, or over the phone. Grassfire delivers communications that you and your campaign, your issue campaign can be proud of. It's www.grassfire.us. They also fuel 10centtexting.com. 82% of people open every text message they get. Make sure it's impactful. Make sure it makes a difference. Make sure that it's memorable. That's what 10-cent texting can deliver for you better than anybody in the business. So they literally wrote the book on it. It's their free gift to you. Go to 10centtexting.com to get the 8 pro tips to successful political campaign or texting. And so visit them today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Sean. And I wanted to there's a question here about do you have a calculator to answer the question about how much to fundraise? It's not as simple as a calculator. You're going to have to think through it. We do have a budget template that we use. You can email me, Dustin at olsonstrategies.com, to think about what it's going to take. But it's going to be, it really just depends on a lot of different factors that go into it. And then also interns, fellowships, and share force. Yes, do join the share force, as well as we are still looking for more interns and fellows to join us in this effort to reignite American patriotism. So you can reach out to us at our emails as well. And Sean, if you'd like to share with people what you just shared with me.
Yeah. I just got a notification that Rush Limbaugh's wife issued a statement that Rush Limbaugh passed away. So, and I had heard that he was ill or getting worse yesterday, and they were talking about it earlier this week.
I know that Rush Limbaugh's had a huge impact in my life and so many lives across this country. It's my mom always has an argument with me as to whether it was intentional or not. But anyway, I remembered it as being not intentional, and maybe she was being subversive. But every time I go home for lunch in middle school, way back when he was first on the air, we live in Colorado, and KOA was the radio station that we listened to. That's where they did the weather and the farm report, all that kind of stuff back in the day. And my mom would turn it on in the morning, and it would be on all day. And I'd come home for lunch, and Rush Limbaugh would be playing, and it would just it started shaping my worldview. And he was entertaining, and he really was insightful, and it was a tour de force. I've really enjoyed in the last year. I've since he became ill, have started listening again, and it really is it's remarkable with the chemo and everything that he's been going through, that he has continued up until probably in the last week. He's been doing these shows, and really, I know a lot of people with everything that's happened in the election and just how distraught people were. They look to him as a solid voice to help them with it. I know so many people who that's where they turned, and he really made a difference for folks and entertained us.
Yeah. So while he'll be missed, we really appreciate his contribution to reigniting American patriotism and really being a leader in conservative thought. So
yeah. It's amazing. It's been since 87 or 88 that he's been doing this program. It's just remarkable
Yeah.
that many years. It's quite the legacy, and I don't know who could ever step in and fill those shoes.
Yeah.
But that's what there is for folks, is to be a political leader for your community and for your state and for our country. That there are not the old guard, the people who have been doing it for so long, will not be able to be there forever, and it's for all of us to step up and to fill those shoes. And we are grateful to Rush Limbaugh for his contribution.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, thank you all for listening and joining us today. We really appreciate being able to bring this content to you. So thanks for joining us today. It really makes a difference, and we look forward to seeing what comes out of it for you as leaders and in your neck of the woods.
Yep.
So.
Well, thank you very much. We'll be back again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We appreciate all of your contributions to this show, and thank you very much for joining us. This has been another episode of Political Trade Secrets.
Join us next time by subscribing on iTunes and get show notes and sign up for our newsletter at politicaltradesecrets.com.